Hello, good morning. This is Sunrise. I'm Ayo Makinde. Now, of course, you know that a number of things happen in the course of the week, and I guess the one that gets the most people the most is the tsunami, the judicial tsunami in Edo and Rivers State. I'm not even going to go there right now, you know, because the judicial or legal officers are still divided as to what that means, what the implications of that, you know, is all over the place. Some are saying, okay, the judicial pronouncement, that order of court is not precise. It doesn't overturn something. And I'm still wondering, okay, the process is wrong. How can the result be right? Isn't that part of the things that people were saying about the 2023 elections? But hey, you know what? I'm not even going to go there right now. One of the things that also happened that took our attention in the course of the week is the floods. And if you go online, see all kinds of things that have happened in the various parts of the country, particularly in Lagos, you cannot but be amazed at the level of the floods. A number of people that you know have reported it. One of the areas that's most flooded in Nigeria is Lekki, and a number of people are wondering, hey, in fact, some people are still wondering how we could live with it. But look at this right here on your screen right now. There are a number of people that you know who parked their cars in their compounds, and guess what? It's right there, submerged in flood water. And there are those who have all kinds shades of opinion, all kinds of perspectives to it. There are some vehicles that can walk that can move in flooded areas. There are some that cannot move in flooded areas. And all of these things are just happening to us right here in the city. And I'm just wondering, didn't we all know that this was going to happen? Didn't we all know that this was going to happen? Of course, we knew it was going to happen. We saw in the weather forecasts that this was going to happen. And then this is still our situation. This is still our story. I'm hoping, and we have spoken to some authorities, for those of you who've been following Channels Television, and what we have heard from the authorities is a good number of all of these activities is as a result of our behavior as a people. You may have also seen it in the news, where some people, at least about 2 people, got out a huge container of dirt, of garbage in their compound, and poured it into the flood in front of their house. And of course, where is that going? It's definitely going to block somewhere. Thankfully, the Lagos State government has decided to do something about it. But it's not just in Lagos that this happened. We know that the federal government put out a notice that 10 states in the country are affected by this flood already. So there are also a number of us who have built houses in floodplains. All of that is also conversation that is well known to us. I'm just wondering, we saw that this was going to happen. Is there anything we could have done to avoid, particularly the loss of property, loss of investments? Well, this is a concern. It's an ongoing concern. And I'm just hoping that somehow we find ourselves able to get over this. More rains are coming. Let's tell our loved ones that when these things happen, at the end of the day, it's all on us as a people. I'm talking about dirt. I happened to, on my way to the office this morning, I saw something that a number of us may have also seen. And that is the dirty bus stops. And I remember someone just said, oh, wow, would this happen in the days of Fashola? It could have happened at any time. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about government, it's about us as a people. But then there's something someone also said. Someone said, hey, it's because people are likely to misbehave. That's why we have government, that's why we have laws. So then I'm wondering, because, I mean, just at Berger bus stop, on my way, and it may also be your experience in your part of the city, in your part of the country. On my way to the office this morning, right there on the highway, It's very dirty. Litters all over the place, both at the bus stops and right there along the medians. And it is from like that, from that bus stop down all through until after Kara Bridge. Is someone dropping the ball somewhere? I would have expected that that's something for a LOMA, the Lagos State Waste Management Agency or Authority, would have done something about. Let's hope that by this, something is being done about it. We are not unaware that the Commissioner for the Environment in Lagos is very, very, very active. Thank you for all you're doing, Mr. Wahab. But then there is this gap. Anyone who comes into this city, they see dirty Lagos, and that's the supposedly urban parts of Lagos. I can't imagine what's happening right now in Alimosho. I can't imagine what's happening in Alimosho, in Badagry, in Ekpe, where else now? In different parts of the city. I can't imagine. I'm trying. I can't imagine. They probably are dirty as well. But hey, no one can blame anyone for that. It's all on us. But that's why we have government. And that's why, part of the reason I always say, and please forgive me, the Lagos State, the local governments have a yeoman's job to do in this particular area. If they were effective, if they were active doing what they should do, you remember those days of cart pushers? I don't see them around anymore. You know, I'm not asking for them to come back, but they played a role. So imagine if we had systems that could ensure that these dirt are taken away from the road right there in our faces. Wouldn't it be helpful? I'm hoping that that will also be done, because if the rains fall in areas where the drainage system is not very effective, all of that dirt goes into the drainage, the little drainage that we have. And guess what happens? Flooding. Okay. There's something else that I found very interesting. And that's, I looked at, I just wanted to check, what are Nigerians looking for? Because I'm aware, and I'm sure you may or may not be aware as well, that there are a good number of Nigerians that are coming into the country. I've spoken with one or two colleagues here and there, and they tell me that, look, many of these things are not in the media, but guess what? There are foreigners who are coming into Nigeria. What are they looking for? Opportunities. Yes, opportunities. Just last week, no, in the course of this week, the Nigeria Oil and Gas Week held. It's one of the most prominent events in Africa, if not even in the world. I understand that Africa is coming to Nigeria for that. The last one I hope held was not the Nigeria Oil and Gas Week. Africa is coming for the same thing. So foreigners are coming into Nigeria. So I wondered, okay, Nigeria, what are the opportunities Nigerians are searching for? Guess what I found? No, you can go ahead and search it yourself. Just Google top searches in Nigeria. What are Nigerians searching for? Those, you go ahead and search. And just wonder if you find anything that, whether we are searching for these opportunities or not. So what you got to do with Sophia Momodu? How does that add food to your table? More than 1,000 searches this morning alone. Anyway, let me leave that one. So, what are we talking about this morning? Here is the first one that we'll be looking at. You know what happened in Kenya? What are the lessons you think we can draw from what happened in Kenya? Government of the people. That is the demonstration that we got in Kenya. Is that what we are having here? That's one of those things we'll be talking about this morning. Powering industries for economic growth is our second conversation today, and hope that will also be very exciting. I expect that someone will be Googling or searching for opportunities in our country now. Leading with integrity. Find out the details of that one in the course of time. And what do you know about prostate cancer? No, it's not to scare you. It's to help you get a better understanding so that at least you can live better. Because we want you to live longer, last longer on this earth, because for as long as you're alive, you can't just be wasting God's oxygen, can you? Our artist of the week has a name that is very, very interesting, synonymous with a very prominent musician. Is our artist a musician, You find out in the course of time. So in the meantime, can I ask you to please, I did myself a favor this morning. I got myself a cup of cocoa with a dash of honey. And if you have got yours, just go ahead and get it. And you may want to add some honey to it as well. And if you prefer cocoa, why not? Go ahead and do yourself a favor. Meantime, I'm right with you right after this.
We are many people, different tribes, different tongues. We're united in our strength.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us. Now, a wave of protests swept through Kenya. Maybe it's still on. Of course, we know it was triggered by that controversial proposed tax hikes. And that movement has evolved into a wider campaign for more accountability in government in the country. Some demand that the entire government should resign. Of course, we know it all came from the supposed, the finance bill, which the president has since withdrawn. Of course, you also know that at some point, the government said that the protest had been hijacked and all of those things. But what are the lessons we can draw from that? I think a number of us will remember that we've had such waves over time. I don't know if there's ever really been such a wave that's revolutionized anything. I know that some who in history will remember the Aba women's riots. We'll also remember Funmilayo Ransome Kuti's move with the Egba women, which both happened about the same time. If you watch the movie Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, you might get a sense of that. But I don't know whether in recent time such a thing has actually made any move without some kind of divine intervention. In 1993, we know what happened, and the response of the people to that, and the pressure that compelled the president of the day to vacate his seat, hand over to an interim government, which was taken over by another military government. And we know that that military government didn't quite give up. Civil society organizations didn't stop making the noise. But was that what really caused the change? No, not really. When the third military government in that space came in, then he had to just hand over to a civilian authority. In 2012, we had that wave. It was over in a week. Was it able to really change anything? Well, maybe there was a bit of a reversal of the fuel subsidy at the time. And then the NSAS. Did it really achieve the kind of things we desired? I don't know. Let's see what we can come out of this with. Government of the people is what we're talking about. Lessons from Kenya. Professor Okey Ikechukwu joins us this morning. He's Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. He's with us right there in our Abuja studio. Thank you for joining us this morning, Prof.
Thank you very much, Ayo.
I've just gone down through history.
Sorry, before you open up, before you open fire, let me alert you that you're in the process of generating a protest. You're talking about your cocoa and a dash of honey, right? Now, how many Nigerians can do that? Don't get yourself into trouble. Don't be telling people how much is a can of cocoa. Oh boy, take it easy.
Well, those who have been following the program as you know that I take my cocoa because I want to live a little longer. Okay. You know, but you know,
take it easy.
I hope that this doesn't start any riots, because if there would be any, we'll be talking about food insecurity for a while now. Thankfully, it hasn't really caused anything. Even though I think it was someone talking in the course of the week, I forgot who it was now, saying that we are at risk of some kind of protests over the cost of food. But it's part of the whole in these conversations that we are having. People were complaining in Kenya of one thing or the other, especially when the government of the day now decided, you know what, you guys need to pay more taxes through the finance bill. And then the people took over government, so to speak, and said, no, this has got to end. And that's what we have. In fact, I saw a video of a young lady who said, look, we understand taxing, we understand all these things that are necessary, but when the budget is heavy, the first thing you want to reduce or remove are what you call non-essential items. And for the young lady to have said that, she probably has looked at the budgets and to see the things that the people may have considered essential or non-essential. Are there lessons that you think we can identify from what happened in Kenya, and if we have ever considered such a thing?
Well, there are lessons, but let's also put the issues in context. Kenya's debt stands at about $80 billion. It's dealing with it progressively. Now, 3/4 of the country's economic output goes into the repayment of debts, in addition to 65% of its internally generated revenue. And remember that this tax thing that's leading to protests is part of the recommendations of the International Monetary Fund. There's a simple question on the table, and that's in that there should be a lesson for us. When government is thinking of raising revenue, is it that the best way to go about this is to tax the people? That's question number one. Question number two, it is time for all African countries to sit down and calmly ask themselves, looking back in the last 40 years, how many of the suggestions and interventions of the International Monetary Fund has led to real development, has led to people-focused interventions, has led to national, proper national self-management? Those are the issues, because if you look at the poverty in Africa, look at the interventions of the World Bank, you look at the interventions of the IMF, you ask yourself, why is it that nations borrow in Africa, poverty increases, the debt increases, so the things for which the money is borrowed, you can't see it, and yet poverty is going on and on. So I thought I should give that background before coming forward to whether there are lessons for us. Now, the protests are not just about whether or not
sorry, Prof, if I can quickly piggyback on the issues that you just raised now. It's not like these issues are unique to Kenya, even here in the country as well. I know maybe we just talk about the lessons in the course of time. It's not that those issues are unique to Kenya. Okay. They also happen here in our country. And it is not like Kenya doesn't have natural resources. It's not like Kenya doesn't have human resources. So what is the genesis? It definitely isn't because the government came up with a finance bill, just that. That was just like some kind of the last straw that broke the camel's back, that caused that kind of revolt or reaction from the people. So is it a problem of the people or a problem of governance over time? What exactly would you say was the history to it? We know the West would always want to do what the West would want to do because it's all about opportunities. So what do you think was the source or the crux of the matter? Over time, or it was just a spontaneous thing?
There's a question of what has been going on over time, but more importantly, if you look at most of the comments and reactions of those driving the protest, there are three key issues they are bringing up. The taxes are heavy, we are already taxed, and you're multiplying avenues where you will apply tax. So if you tax me, if you increase my income tax, you increase taxes on all the things I spend on, it's still coming from me. Now, the same people you're taxing are looking at the ruling elite. They are looking at the expenditures on the government, on the presidential villa and the rest of it. You know, those are some of the issues mentioned, which made the president to indicate that, okay, we're going to cut here and there. The point is this. National resources are for national development. Now, development involves costs. That cost and the funding must come from somewhere. Now, the issue here is you want that money to come from taxation and from the people. And the people are looking at the living standards and the reflexes of those in office. Their privileges are on the increase. They are living in luxury. You can see that Kenyans are also putting up on X platform and many others all the signs of opulence among the ruling elite. So it's a growing perception of, look, we're being drained. Those around us are not sensitive. You say it's a government of the people, but it's looking more and more like the government of those in power to make themselves comfortable at the expense of the people. More importantly and more critically, Kenya has borrowed just like every other African country. The borrowings, what were they deployed to achieve? Are they achieving that? If Kenya implements the taxes it has in view, how will that affect the level of living? How will that affect poverty? How will that affect social security and the rest of it? So you find that initially the protests were rather peaceful. Okay, we don't want this, but over time, and as more and more material was getting into the social media about how the elite was living, how the political class was living, for the president, for Ruto to say, okay, he's going to cut down on, what do you call it? There will now be no budget for the office for the president's wife, among so many other things. I think the cost run into $1 billion something. It tells you that this is a comprehensive response, not organized by anybody who is just the opposition, but by aggrieved individuals who are citizens. But here is the danger. A protest, no matter how justified it is, if it is not led, it will degenerate into confusion. And we have the examples. You mentioned NSAS earlier. NSAS was a very timely response to the excesses of SARS, which is an agency of the Nigeria police. But imagine that that protest lasted maybe for however long. You cannot rule Nigeria from a toll gate. There must always be organized interventions. And it's interesting you said, yeah, in the past it had led to revolutions, but today we are not sure what to make of it. Look around you. Everybody, at least sometime in the past, celebrated the Arab Springs. You know, it was the protest of the people that led to these governments being overthrown. But the question to ask is, in those countries where it occurred, do they still have a country? You look at Libya, you look at Sudan. So, whereas it is important to raise issues, object to obnoxious policies, demand accountability from the leadership, organized interventions are the solutions. They must be spearheaded, there must be specific demands. Like when the NSAS thing was going on, I recall I think I was on this channel and you were also on air, and I made 2 or 3 specific suggestions. Let the drivers of that protest indicate in clear terms, A, B, C, D, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is they're asking for. Let them have representatives. Let there be a meeting with government. Let there be clear outcomes. I'm not one to celebrate angry crowds. People can get angry, but a crowd becomes its own damage, its own enemy when it goes on. I was on the Guardian editorial body during the June 12th. There were June 12 riots. Nigerians were deeply angry about so many things. Until Nadeko gave it some kind of direction. What happened was that as you are on your own driving on Ikorodu Road, because you look a little healthier than the average person, you get attacked. That's not what we're looking for. But are there lessons for us? Yes. The lesson here, and that's something for the ruling political and economic to note, is this. When suffering becomes unbearable, when people cannot pick their daily bills, when it becomes impossible for even the elite to be safe, it means that there are fundamental things government should be doing that is not doing. Today, emirs get kidnapped. Everybody in a fine car is in danger of becoming a victim. Serving generals get shot on the road, not because they are targeted, but it's opportunistic criminality. That's not the kind of country we're talking about. So we are hungry, we are angry, everybody is unhappy. But a country must exist before you oppose the government governing it. And so, whereas there are lessons, it's actually for the elite to begin to recalibrate its own reflexes. And when we speak of the elite, usually...
My apologies. Perhaps we're actually leading to it by not paying attention. Some of these things don't just happen. As you mentioned, Prof, history is there to learn from. It would seem like generally across Africa, we don't seem to learn from history. And secondly, we don't seem to be building for the future. It was in the 80s that a young lady sang the song then. I think her name was Tosin Jegede. Parents, listen to your children. We are the leaders of tomorrow. We are the leaders of tomorrow is what we hear. And guess what? We're still calling them the leaders of tomorrow without giving them the reins of power. I also always say something, that the people who are in government today, who are in civil service today, in almost 1,500 ministries, departments, agencies, and corporations of government, were not in government 30 years ago. So it would seem like we're not passing on the torch. We're not communicating the future. as they come in, the orientation they get is that of opportunism, is that of defending yourself, protecting yourself. It's like we have hurt in the past, and we're still peeling the wounds of the past over time until now. So what do we need to do? How will the young people react when all they see is the things that you have described? Opulence and seeming wealth of people who may themselves be struggling.
Well, for me, a lot of young people keep talking of how young they are until they discover they've turned old. If you're young and you say you're leader of tomorrow, you must ask yourself, what are the paradigms for tomorrow? Am I acquiring those paradigms? Do I know enough about my country? You see, we have a certain, if I like, delusional perception of the capacities and relevance of youth. As we speak, there are many young people who are in high places. Today, you would describe Tony Elumelu as belonging to the older generation, if not, middle between the very old generation and the young. Go and check Tony's record as a young man in his 20s and 30s. Go and check most other people's records. The thing we overlook is that you tell us, look, Nigerian youths got us independence. That is a fact. If you look at all those who fought for independence, they were very young people. They fall within the age bracket. What a lot of us overlook is that it was Nigerian youths who destroyed this country in 1966 going forward. What do I mean? The first set of youths who got us independence had international exposure. They knew what was in the interest of their people. Look at Awo's sophistication and intelligence. Look at Zeke's sophistication and intelligence. Look at Sir Ahmadu Bello's understanding of the needs of the North, his attention to education, his attitude even when people came for money for Hajj. He said Hajj is for those who can, if you can afford it, go on your own resources and all of that. Now you come. Another set of youths took over. Think of the 1966 coup. What was the age of the person who overtook it, who carried out the coup? Who did he consult? And so you find that with that event and many other events following it, a new set of young people with guns who didn't have the knowledge, international exposure, understanding of national development involved, ran out, took over, and a lot has happened since then. Many of them are no longer here. Many more of them have grown into very old men. And so the young ones who look and say, oh, you see, is this older generation that destroyed Nigeria? No, look back. What point am I making with that? When youth is not sufficiently informed about its environment, it doesn't understand the paradigms of development and leadership, and situates itself only within a grumbling platform, they will always think they can perform magic. And that's why working extensively with a lot of young people, I always tell them, seek knowledge. That's not the same thing as go and get a degree. Understand your operating environment. If you're going to become head of state today, you're going to run a country made up of many states, made up of many things. Can you do that? Can you treat a fire? And the way I sympathize much more with them is that you also have now an older generation that is not doing enough mentoring for the young. That is employing them as PA and SA, and the only skill they have is to carry bag, and they're hoping to get into appointment somewhere. So the damage has become much more extensive. Leaders of tomorrow, yes. What are the paradigms of tomorrow? Is a 21st century world? Is a VUCA world? The youths who are more visible than their colleagues, are they part of that world? Are they part of the consuming elite in Nigeria? You look around you, Kenya is in protest today. Should we have the number of senior special assistants we have in government at state and federal levels? Should we have this? So you find that the convoluted platforms, structures and expenditures for public administration makes it impossible for genuine development to take place. Lagos was governed by Jakonde. How many commissioners did he have? Did he have a single senior special? Look at what he did in 4 years. How many governors have been able to do that in 8 years? You look across the country all over the place. Now the regions. The entire North is made of how many states now? More than 18. It was governed by one person with a certain number of commissioners. Now you have how many governors? Let's even assume it's 15. Of course, we know the actual number. How many commissioners? How many official vehicles? How many senior special assistants? Among so many other things. That's part of the crisis of the Nigerian state. That we have bloated administrative structures for public administration, delivering less value, reading budgets, without on each occasion before the new budget asking, okay, last year's budget, how much of it did it deliver? Why is it on record that in most states of the Federation, you find that empowerment programs are going on, but for the last probably 9-11 years, 40 or more % of all those coming for youth empowerment had taken part in previous empowerments. Government has become a drain on itself because the overall space has shrunk. So bringing it all around, the issue on the table is fairly simple. The political elite, the economic elite, the traditional elite are the ones who stand in greatest danger of demolition. If there is indeed the kind of protest we are talking about.
You know, just
vulnerable. And that vulnerability will increase for as long as the right steps are not taken to address pressing challenges.
I'm not sure that even the elite is aware of this delicate situation. In the course of the week, I happened to be at a meeting of, talking about local government autonomy, to which I was invited. And one of the revelations that came to me privately from someone who was just talking to me said that one of the caretaker committee chairmen in Rivers State caretaker committee chairman has more than 30 assistants. More than 30. Of course, we can imagine that many of them are young people and all. But, when you spoke about the elites, there's something that I continue to ask, and a good number of professors such as yourself, Prof, have also pointed at the need for it. Elite consensus. Was there such a thing in Kenya? Is it possible to have such a thing here in Nigeria? Even in the different regions, in the southeast, in the south-south, in the southwest, or even in the north central, northeast, and northwest, do we have the opportunity of elite consensus? That the elite will come together and say, guys, let's go in this particular direction. And everyone in the political space, in the economic space, in those environments will agree, okay, this is in it for us, this is in it for us. We disagree on this, but we can compromise this. We disagree on this, but we can compromise this. The elites come together and they agree for a particular national narrative. Do you think that could have staved off the riot in Kenya? Do you think it is something that can also help us in Nigeria?
There was elite consensus in Kenya, at least the political elite. The consensus became manifest in the law they were about to pass before the protest began. If they didn't have a consensus, they would have agreed. So the consensus was to tax the people, get all the money from them, but continue living the way you're living. So elite consensus can be conscious or unconscious. In the case of our country here, yes, we have an elite consensus. That consensus is manifest in all the things that are going wrong that nobody is protesting against. And when also you speak of consensus, it will depend on which arm of the elite. Let me give an example. The political elite, you're either in public office, by election, or by appointment. So imagine that you have state governments, you have state governors, and Nigeria is running. But today, as we speak, there is the Niger Delta Development Commission, there's Northeast Development Commission. Every part of the country is looking for its own development commission. Nobody is asking the question. The Niger Delta that first got a commission, has it been developed? If you look at the trillions of naira that have gone into that section of the country, I look at the kind of projects, and you look at the question of impact on the actual lives of the people in a degraded environment. Is it working? What's the cost of their building? In the case of the North, so my take is fairly simple. When you create such commissions, it is not the man in my village or your village that will be there. It will be another arm for the elite to live at public expense or running budgets that are sometimes bigger than that of the state, ostensibly for national development. I've always maintained the view, and I'll repeat it here, those commissions should be scrapped. Take the money to the states in those regions. If you say the governor is embezzling it, let him fight with his people, let them sort themselves out. Those are some of the complications we are living with. So is there elite consensus? Yes. That consensus also manifests sometimes as insensitivity. But it would be unfair not just to suggest that the entire Nigerian political elite is made up of irresponsible people who don't care. No, that is not correct. But the issue on the table is that also, if you look at the political reflexes over time, there is a preponderance of actions that suggest that those taking those actions are not sufficiently sensitive to the environment. And I'll pick one that's apparently unrelated to this. You recall that from time to time you hear of how the Air Force or the Navy has destroyed 50 illegal refineries in Rivers State or in some other parts of the country, of that region. 4 weeks later here they destroyed another 18, etc. Meanwhile, in that same place, remember that Wike at a point read the Riot Act to his commissioners, a local government chairman. If an illegal refinery is found in your place, you're in trouble. Now, the point I'm leading to with this is that we are not exploring all the tiers of government that are responsible for what's happening around them. What do local government chairmen exist to do? Why are there councillors? Why are there ward chairmen? What is their role? And when local government gets 100 million in a month and nothing happens, is that the fault of the presidency? So what I'm saying is fairly simple. The decay of a sense of service delivery in leadership has permeated every strata of government. And that cannot end except there is some level of, change of orientation. It will not come as a consensus at first, but it can be built into a consensus.
Prof, very, very interesting way, that you put it. So the consensus is more for the interest of the elites, not for the interest of the people. Okay, so is it possible for the elites to come together and say, look, let's step down our interests for a bit and look at the nation? And there's this message on X by Skittish Money. Tola says, Fela sang, government teacher is culture and tradition. Even where the people in civil service are newer sets, what is the culture in the civil service? Transformation of the civil service is what is required if we want a functional system. Do you see that happening? We've been talking about the Oronsori report for a while. We understand that there is some pushback already from those who are afraid that they might lose relevance or lose opportunities if that happens. Do you see this transformation happening?
No, it's not going to happen in the way idealists are thinking. People who talk about policy, if you make this policy, Nigeria will be wonderful. Before you plant a tree, find out whether it can grow on the soil where you're carrying it to. Now, you look at Nigeria it is today. One of the best things that can happen to this country is for us to return to regionalism. 6 regions, 6 governments, fantastic idea on paper. Now, that is delusional. You know why? Who is going to agree to that? I'm a governor. Ayo, you're a governor. All our friends are senators. There are House of Reps members. And to even create the states, we got our states because we were protesting that we are being marginalized in our region. And now you think we'll sit down and be clapping when people are trying to bring the regions back? The answer is no. So if you are talking about consensus, you must ask yourself and look for feasible consensus. Consensus cannot be on the ideal. It must be on what is feasible, what is workable. So I agree. For me, regionalism is perfect. It's the only solution to our problem in terms of reduction in cost, among so many other things. But anybody hoping to make that happen today, without prejudice to the caliber of people involved and organizations, it will be a very, very tough sell. Governors will sit down today, and I agree with you, to collapse their structures. Even if you say, okay, let there be a regional coordinator and the states will still be there, my question will then be, is that not another platform for expenditure? You want to create one more state. To create the state, you consult all the 36 states. The 21 assemblies will have to agree. Who will agree to that? So I'm leading up to a very simple and straightforward point. Every attempt at a consensus must contend with interest benefiting with the status quo, benefiting from the status quo. Now, where the status quo is very entrenched and has the finances to undermine your own engagement, you can speak of consensus. But a good deal of the time it will take force majeure, whereby a serious calamity or something leads to, and sorry, to switch this now, going to the June 12th thing. Yes, people will tell you that because Nigerians protested, that's why Babangida stepped aside. I take a contrary view. You see, you can, to speak in military terms, he lost command. Abacha was more acceptable. Babangida was not as rigid. He could be spoken to. I think he was reconsidering, but the Abacha angle and all was that, look, we don't want this. So the point being that every attempt at a consensus has the reality on the ground to contend with. And my question, throwing it back to all of us, is, do you see the current Nigerian elite that approved, I think, 30-something billion for a car park for the National Assembly, that approved all that money for interventions and renovations in all the places, as the type of elite that will sit down and do itself out of a job? An elite that has members who have spent 10, 8, 12 years in the assembly, got constituency projects. The same elite that saw Gbajabiamila. Go and look at what Gbajabiamila did in Lagos with his own money. The same people, the same kind of money they received. What billions? Clear development intervention. So imagine that all the others who were in the house with him, who got the same amount with him, also made interventions in their environment. It will be a different ballgame. Summary, there is a subsisting national consensus. That consensus is a disposition to insensitivity, to speech making, to living in luxury and telling the people you're working for them. But it's not all bad news. The people, imagine for instance you have a leader, and that's why I say the critical role of this leadership should never be downplayed. Leadership signaling is often and most of the time a decisive index of what can happen and what cannot happen. That is part of the issue on the table.
You know, Prof, it's very interesting that we're talking about this now. At the end of the day, this elite consensus must happen. The question is how. I'm receiving a message from someone watching now who is asking, the big question is the government our master or our servant? When the people fear the government, that's tyranny. When the government fears the people, that's freedom. Which one would you say, Prof, is the preferred state? And what's the pathway there?
Let's work with a sense of history. And I will also respond by asking a couple of questions. Is it true that some people in office today, I hear many, or majority, got into their elective positions by means that are questionable in terms of electoral process? And I'm not talking even at the national level. Look, state houses of assembly, governorship positions, etc. If the answer is yes, and you're saying it's government of the people, with all due respect, it's government of the people who put that government or that person in place. And they are the people he will work with and work for. That's number one. Number two, when I borrowed 2 billion naira in order to get to the Senate, and I know that my entire entitlement while in the Senate will not be up to 1.5 billion, you know that for me, it's an investment. I have to find whatever means exist on earth to recover that money. So I'm thinking of oversight functions where instead of oversighting whatever it is I've gone to oversight, I'll collect something and go. Now, that's the environment within which we are operating. People will tell you, oh, this doesn't happen in America. And I tell them, this is not America. When you allow your own rights to be sold off up front for 10,000, I gave you 10,000, you voted for me, you sold your very existence to me for the next 4 years. So you're worth 2,500 every year. The whole point of this is, let us first of all admit the challenges of the human environment we are in. Admit the fact that the demands of the people make it difficult for genuinely intelligent leaders to emerge. Make it also clear that in spite of that, somebody can lead well. If we make these admissions, another admission we must make is that our youths are being wrongly mentored by the political elite. And it will not take the presidency for me to go and start a youth program in my local government, not my state. It will not take the IMF for me to know that there are things I can do that can become examples. I don't need my bishop to tell me that when I'm going to visit my mother, I don't need to go with a convoy of 9 vehicles because I'm a public office holder. Because as you're doing that, you're doing unconscious mentoring of the elite, of the youth. Oh, that man, whenever he's coming, there are policemen with him. He's driving very fast. Nobody can approach him. I want to be like him when I grow up. Now, that's a new leadership culture that the youths, you say are leaders of tomorrow, that's the kind of tomorrow you're forcing them to prepare for. Whereas in the past, these were, you look at a leader, his dignity is compelling, he's believable, etc. Those are the challenges, and it's not by, and that's why I believe agencies like National Orientation Agency, yeah, people may say, oh, what is it doing? National Orientation Agency needs better funding, state agencies like that, but most importantly, leaders must show by their personal reflexes that at least they even had a proper upbringing. There's a way people behave in public. Ostentation, debauchery, those are not the things that define anybody in any culture, anywhere in Nigeria. So what is it that has happened to us? But instead of asking the question and saying, oh, it needs to be better, let everybody engage where he is. I run programs, youth programs, whatever you choose to call it. Let people engage where they are. Not gather in a big hall, air-conditioned, capacity of the hall 300. You make a fine speech, which somebody wrote for you, by the way, and is reported in the paper, and somebody says, no, that's not the way to go.
Okay, Prof, just lastly, I'm really very happy that you said you work with young people all the time. What would you say, okay, what are the youths saying, the ones that you're talking about, you are talking with, that you interface with? What are they saying? How are they feeling about our nation now? Hopeful or not? And how do we build their hope? If you can do this in 60 seconds, sir.
They are not feeling hopeful. They are not feeling hopeful. They are not happy. But after presenting the challenges to them, I see my primary duty as that of getting them to see ways out of the challenges. And very often I use the example of Mandela and Thabo Mbeki. Mandela was a young man back then. I mean, Mbeki and some of his colleagues went to meet Mandela and Mbeki's father, the major drivers of the struggle. They had designed a very wonderful plan for dealing with the whites in South Africa. They say from the next week, they will start throwing bombs into their windows, burning their cars in the neighborhoods, and all of that. They'll keep doing it until the white people will leave South Africa. Mandela sat them down. I say, you're stupid. If you start that, at most, some of you will be alive for the next 1 year. The luckiest among you will be alive in 3 years. But I can tell you that in the next 10 years, those who will be doing this thing you're doing with people, not 18 and 20 like you, but those in 11 years or less, because they will have killed off the rest. They asked him, so what's the solution? He said, one simple sentence: go and prepare yourselves. Understand that this struggle will not end in 1 week. Go, gain knowledge of why our people are oppressed. Find out the attitude of the international community. Build alliances if you can, but most importantly, ensure no lives are wasted. Don't act in excitement, act with insight. Where you can give somebody a slap, you discover he can listen, don't give the slap, talk instead. Now, after this advice, about less than 2 weeks later, Mandela and co were put in jail. These guys took the advice. I think 9 of them were very essential to driving the South African independence. Now, my point is this. All the young people I deal with, all of them are idealistic. You must accept their idealism. You must also tell them your own story, how excited you were at that age. But that if you didn't learn certain things, it wouldn't have worked. So understand them, acknowledge the rightness of their anger, show them a way out of it at the lowest level up to the highest. For instance, in their teamwork, you find many of them acting exactly like those they are condemning, ordering their mates around, asking somebody who is your mate to carry your bag, and the man in charge say, hey, that's not how it used to be. Now, why does that matter? In every environment where you make interventions, you will pray and hope that it touches between 5 and 20%. If it does, it's a fundamental change. Absolutely. And I'll close with the example of Adeniran Ogunsoya of Lagos. Chief Adeniran Ogunsoya, as a boy, saw Zeke talking. He listened to him, he looked at, he was so impressed. I want to become enlightened like this man. He left this country as a stowaway in a ship, came back, prepared for leadership and was Zeke's loyalist all his life. But that's not the point I'm making. During the war, when the Igbos ran away from Lagos, Chief Ogunsoya was the one who took inventory of their houses, collected rents and all the rest of it. When they came by, he gave them their money. Now, that's only one person who was affected by Zeke. A lot of other people were affected by so many other things. So when you want national transformation, it doesn't mean that it's only when you do it in a stadium. Do something where you are. You don't know where that character in front of you will be in the next 30 years.
And that's an amazing place to leave it, Prof. It's very, very insightful conversation. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Professor Okey Ikechukwu is Executive Director Academy. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Okay. Food for thought, right? Well, there's more where that came from after this break. To stay with us. This is definitely one of my favorite topics. Economic growth. I know what really can I do about it, because it's a very, very specialized, part of our lives. But hey, let's talk about powering industries for economic growth. Now, the Rural Electrification Agency on Thursday signed an MOU with 5 private developers to scale up electricity access in the country. The plan is for them to supply something in the region of 1,265 megawatts capacity of decentralized rural electrification, decentralized renewable energy, on-grid or off-grid. That's what that is all about. Now, we have an estimated in Nigeria, an estimated 427 gigawatts of electricity through solar. What are we doing about them? How is this usable for us as a people to power our economic growth? Let's have the conversation this morning. 2 people who joined us this morning. Engineer Olafemi Olaniyan is here with me in the studio. He is a stakeholder management of the Nigeria Energy Forum. He's right here with me in the studio. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
I also have with us in Abuja studio, Ms. Ibironke Olubamiche, who is a national coordinator, Global Environment Facility Small Grants Program. It's a program that's implemented by the United Nations Development. We'll let you meet her as soon as we have everything in place. Thank you, by the way, for joining us here, Engineer. So now, what would you say is our primary challenge in terms of in the area of powering industries for economic growth?
Thank you. I would say 2 very huge challenges. First of all, you must understand that industry requires bulk power. When I say bulk power, an average factory, for instance, producing, let's say, beverages, would require in the range of about 500 kVA, 500 kVA supply. Now, putting that kind of thing together is no small task. When you bear in mind that a community would consume that kind of power. So you need to move power in bulk for industries to benefit from them. Then, secondly, is cost. Cost. Power is not cheap. Power costs a lot of money to put together, and then you recoup the money over time. Unless you can provide an enabling environment where an investor can recoup his investment over about 20 years and not have to worry about whether policies will change, whether exchange rate volatility and things like that. So let's say funding. So those 2 things are huge constraints.
But perhaps that also speaks to the challenge of whether or not we are exploring all of the opportunities that we have. For instance, the solar power potential that Nigeria has is estimated to be about 427 gigawatts. In the course of the week, I think it was last week, we put up on our breakfast program the Kaduna windmill project that backs up to like 2004, 2005. And as we speak, it's still in its derelict state. There are those who say, okay, the government says they're going to do something about it, but we all know the story because we saw the visuals and it's as current as can be. This is Channels Television. We want to ensure that we're giving people the real information that they need at any given time. So that is there. So are we exploring all possibilities, or we're just trying to manage the low-hanging fruits, so to speak?
You know, what you pointed out is perhaps the most common factor with government-initiated projects. I'll tell you why. A private sector man, or in the private sector, projects are driven by the economic viability, financial viability of the projects. Nobody is going to put a dime behind any project without being sure he can get his money back. Government doesn't have to do that. And that's why you see a government project conceptualized, very good on paper, but when it comes to delivering the project, it falls short because there's really no financial viability. And if you look around, you have so many projects. Look at Ajaokuta, for instance. Nigeria spent more than $10 billion in Ajaokuta, and it has not produced a kilogram of steel. So there are a lot of opportunities, but they have to be driven by the private sector. You have to create an enabling environment for the private sector to put its resources behind such opportunities. And there's a consensus now that renewables can be used for large capacity or large power demands, although many of them may need some form of hybrid. That means renewables and gas, or renewables and diesel, renewables and some other conventional energy source. So private sector is key for this to happen.
Okay. Well, Mrs. Olubamiche is in our Abuja studio. As I mentioned earlier, she is the National Coordinator, Global Environment Facilities Small Grants Program. It's a project being implemented by the United Nations Development Program. Madam, thank you for joining us this morning. We've been listening to us, and thankfully you're a Nigerian. How does it feel when you see all of these gaps, and you see the potential, and then you see the capacity we have, and then you see all of the things that are happening?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayo, for having me here again, and it's a pleasure for me to come and contribute my quota. The experts, engineer, has spoken about all the different areas, but I want to talk about how it dovetails down to the individual people on the streets. And like you know, I work with the communities. And when we know that the informal sector in Nigeria is almost about 50% of the economy in Nigeria. And we discover that it is even, I even want to believe that that is a very conservative percentage, really. And so the people that really need this energy are in the villages, in the communities. And even though it's little that they need, but that little actually drives the economy from the bottom up. And that is why it is very important that the government sees the opportunities. Fortunately for us in Nigeria, the opportunities abound for us to have this a combination of the different energy that we have access to naturally and also maybe through industrialization. Unfortunately, it's like we're still scratching the surface as far as harnessing the opportunities that we have to get engaged in renewable energy is concerned. we were talking about the budget of some ministries as far as energy is concerned recently, and everybody's like, okay, we want to buy solar, we want to buy solar. The idea is just to buy solar, but not. The idea is we are hoping and we are advocating that the idea is for Nigeria to look inward and see how we can generate, because the privileges are here, the opportunities are here for us to generate our own electricity. Even the natural one, we know that we even sell to other countries. How much more when we know that the wind is there, the sun is there, the water is there for us to generate electricity. And so this is what we are advocating, that we even have individuals in Nigeria. I was watching a video of a young man that used water to generate electricity using electric generator to generate electricity. Water, not gas, not petrol. So we have the privileges, we have the opportunities here to harness what we have. I think the government, the Naseni, I'm so happy again now that, because some years back, Naseni was not anything to talk about as far as solar is concerned. But now, for years now, we know that they are manufacturing even this solar panel here in Nigeria. So the opportunities are here for us to harness what we have in Nigeria for the common man, because the economy depends on power more than any other thing in Nigeria. And right from the governments to the communities, the economy, the energy mix, we have the opportunity, we have to work on it.
You know, Madam, you're talking about renewable energy. There was this renewable energy plan that was launched in 2011. I'm sure you are aware of it. The plan of that, the master plan had in mind to increase the share of renewable energy to maybe by 2015, up to like 13%, up to like 23% by next year, 2025, and about 36% by 2030. Do you think that plan has taken off?
Well, I would not say that the plan has not taken off, because even to launch the plan alone is an effort in the right direction, if you will ask me. But what is the pace of implementing this plan? Who are the people involved in implementing this plan? And what is the commitment, the political will, and the environment, creating the environment for, like engineer mentioned about the private sector. Is the environment conducive for even the private sector to explore the opportunity that comes from the plan that Nigeria has developed is another issue. But of course, we keep hope alive and hoping that the government, of course, knowing that the government has good intention. And so it is also, I think, another thing is for the government to have the right people who will give the right advice at the right time for the right thing to be done as necessary. So I think, well, we won't say that it is not, because our problem in Nigeria is not the lack of whether the law or the plan or the strategy, but it is the implementation. How are we moving in terms of the implementation is what is important.
You know, well, Engineer Olaniyan here said something the other time when I cited the example of the wind farm in Katsina, and he talked about the role of the private sector. If it's something that is left exclusively to government, you know, it needs the empowerment or the catalyst of a private sector to drive it to full implementation. And then there is organizations such as yourself, you know, championing certain things, civil society organizations, development industry generally, also working in this particular direction. It's interesting that we are talking about this in this particular way. So is that something that your own project is also targeting? I mean, renewable energy and all of that thing. What are the potentials? What are the opportunities in what parts of the country for economic growth?
Thank you very much. I can tell you categorically that over 30% of our project, we have 5 focal areas of operation, of supporting projects. But over 30% of our focal areas actually, in fact, centers on energy. Energy mixed with climate change. You can't, even if we are supporting the women or the farmers in the communities, at some point they need energy, either for processing or even to transport the produce even to the market, and all that is very necessary. So what we are doing is to, number one, encourage communities to also come up with innovative ideas on how to have access to renewable energy. We have supported several projects in everywhere, in Lagos, in almost all the geopolitical zones in Nigeria, and letting people know that, yes, we are advocating for government to create an enabling environment. We are advocating for the government to make energy really accessible in terms of cost and accessibility to the communities. But at the same time, we are trying to see how, from the bottom up, the communities also, individuals, group, the youth especially, how they can come up to create innovative ways for access to renewable energy. Because renewable energy, of course, like we know, we can say that they are kind of infinite. The sun is there all the time, and we are so blessed in Nigeria. So we have supported a couple of projects to showcase that, yes, this is possible, because that is actually one of the focus of our program, is to support pilot projects to show that this is possible. And that is why Channels has invited myself and engineer, because there's a project that we supported in Lagos, on the island of Lagos State, that is helping these women who are fisher selling fish, because before they get this fish, and because there is no cold room, there is no cold room. Number one, they have to look for firewood to be able to smoke the fish and keep it preserved until they are able to sell it. And so they are felling down trees, and then it's also affecting them health-wise and financial-wise, and all in all manners like that. So what we did was to provide them with a cold hub on the one island in Lagos State. And since that time, the news have been there a couple of times. And since even that time, the news we are hearing is that it's now better for them. They can take this fish. I mean, this fish can be preserved for longer days before they are able to sell it. It also enhances their economic activity, because then, whereas they would have sold it at a giveaway price before, it is now because of the cold hub, they can keep the fish and the crayfish for some time, and then be able to add value to it before it is sold. So it is affecting the environment positively, affecting their health positively, and affecting their economic and livelihood positively. So we have many projects like that we have supported.
Well,
and
interesting.
We are still supporting.
Yeah, Engineer Lanio, well, while the industries might be benefiting, the small scale, nano and micro businesses might be benefiting, and if affecting them positively, I'm not sure how well it is affecting the pockets of medium and large corporations. Because you talked about the cost of electricity, cost of powering these industries. And there are those who would point to the fact that the cost of electricity alone is a significant disservice to profitability. So how do we reverse that trend?
What is actually a paradox, which comes first? Fixing the tariff or putting the infrastructure in place? Because the infrastructure, you can only recoup the cost of your capital expenditure if you have a good tariff. But you cannot also fix a tariff that dissuades people who are going to be your customers from investing in production. If I look at the cost of production and I see that the cost is much higher here in Nigeria, I will move my infrastructure, my production capacity elsewhere. So you see that the rate at which demand for electricity is virtually static because there is no new investment in production. But let me tell you something. Now, people have seen that they thought that renewable energy could not power industries has been debunked. In fact, you can see a number of factories coming up in Nigeria. One is in Yola, the dairy farm powered by electricity, because people are now saying that you can use renewable energy for large power demands when you combine it with a gas or diesel plant. It's called hybrid. And gradually, you'll find people will move from the grid. It's less reliable, very expensive, to standalone power supply systems driven mainly by renewable energy. So the grid itself needs to have a rethink about the cost of electricity. And one can't really blame them because they can't be guaranteed a return over a long period of time. You need stable exchange rate to be able to sign a contract that spans 10 years, 5 years. And that is not available with a volatile exchange rate. So, which, like I said, which comes first, fixing a tariff or putting in the infrastructure?
I mean, I'm glad you mentioned the hybrid nature. There are those who would wonder, hey, if you are in business to make money, and if that is your reality, you're in business to make money, why don't you just have that long-term thinking? Why don't you have that long-term plan of hybriding from the very beginning? Do you think that's what the investors could have thought about?
Absolutely. In fact, that is what most investors are thinking about, even established industries.
Now, I'm talking about the electricity service providers.
Well, the electricity service providers, let's remember that they inherited a lot of plants of very low efficiencies. People don't talk about it much, but the power generating infrastructure of Nigeria is actually quite inefficient.
But, you know, you said it, they inherited it. It wasn't foisted on them. They inherited because they saw the market, right? And they also knew that these weaknesses are there, these vulnerabilities are there, these gaps are there. So that's why I'm thinking, I mean, if I'm in business to make money and I know the environment well enough, I'd think of other ways of producing the same thing.
True. But ask any of the investors, they will tell you that the documents that they reviewed to sign those agreements had a little bit of optimism, or should I say, they were too optimistic. Let's talk about losses. Most of the discos, at the time they were signing agreements, talking of about 15% losses. That's technical losses, collection losses, and commercial losses. In the area of about 15%. Today, those losses will be in the range of 25 to 30%. And it's not because the investors have not tried. They've done a lot to try to bring down the losses, but the infrastructure is old. What it will cost you to completely overhaul that infrastructure is many times what they paid for those companies. And so they're not going to be looking into it. But what I see is that even people that are on the grid right now are looking of how to migrate to renewable, to hybrid plants and get off the grid for two reasons. The grid is not reliable. So if you're an industrialist producing around the clock, you don't want a situation where you lose power suddenly. It's bad for planning. And then the cost. With the tariffs today, most industries can produce cheaper power using a hybrid power plant. And that's what people are looking at. And so gradually the grid might see that rather than increasing demand for their product, you will see a declining demand.
You know, madam, let me come back to you now. So this is the situation we find ourselves in. This is where we are right now. Let's talk about some solutions. I'm glad, you know, the example that you gave of what you did on Lagos Island. Cascading that all across the nation, what do you see? What are the challenges that could come? And how do we navigate them? I heard this news sometime back, and I hope it's not true, that there were some parts of the country that were rejecting electricity because it was too much, and they wanted to pay less. I found it amusing, but I sincerely hope it is not true, because even some Gencos and even Trancos say that that is the truth. So in that kind of situation, definitely whatever small businesses there might have the short end of the stick. Where do we go from there?
Thank you very much again. And yes, for the small, micro, and small, and medium-sized enterprises that we are trying to empower in the communities, just like I said before, power is the most important. Engineer also attested to it that power is the most important. And if power is the cost of electricity is, by the time they remove the cost of electricity from their business, there is virtually nothing left for them. So what I am trying to advocate is that because again, for even the private sector to go to the communities, to go and kind of see what they could do innovatively there, we need the government's support. There is need for environments to be created, for it to be lucrative, for private sector to be able to go. There are so many other innovative ideas that we have come up with. But unfortunately, private sectors are not ready to go there. Number one, because of the market. And then number two, because of the cost of even getting to that place compared to working in the cities and in the urban areas. So what I'm saying is that we need the government to focus on the bottom up. Because when the communities know that the government is concerned about their growth and their development economically, this issue of even migrating to the city will reduce. And then, so what we are trying to do is that train youth. See, in Nigeria, opportunities abound. And all you need to do is sit down and think, what can I do to add value? And we're talking of energy mix. There is a whole lot. We have the water, we have the solar, we have the wind, we have composting, even getting energy from natural resources, decaying materials, we can get energy from it. So these are some of the things we are promoting in the communities that, okay, yes, we are advocating for governments to come, and we are also hoping that government will create the environments for private sectors to get interested and more committed to energy that cuts across the whole of Nigeria, not just in the city. We're also training the people that we're working with on the ground to be able to come up with their own innovative idea to be able to meet, or at least meet, their energy needs to some extent.
So, well, Engineer Olania, do you agree with her?
Absolutely. Actually, both of us were involved in the project that was delivered to a community, Sagbukoji community to be precise, located offshore Lagos, which was a solar-powered cold room. I had the opportunity of firsthand seeing what rural communities go through to, just for basic living. Try and imagine someone who is into fishing, buying and selling. What begins to go through their minds when it's almost 5 o'clock and no customers are coming and you have that fish there? You have two choices. Either you prepare it as dinner for your family or you smoke it. And smoking is a very intensive activity, health-wise, and physically demanding. So introducing a cold room or some form of refrigeration into that chain changes the entire scenario. You can ask for higher prices, and you don't have to be desperate to, smoke the fish to preserve it, keeping yourself in better health. So yes, I totally agree with her. And interestingly, the rural community in Lagos State, at least 50 to 60% are engaged in farming, either aquaculture or growing of crops or animal husbandry. And they need energy. They are located in remote places. And so getting energy to them, they will be willing to pay even for the services that you're bringing to them. And that is where mini-grids come into place. And quite a number of mini-grids are now being deployed across Lagos State.
The hope is that we will cascade all of that all across the nation, because that's what I would love to see. I mean, we've seen the poverty figures, the multidimensional poverty figures in the north and in the south, and it's depressing enough. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
We understand that there's an energy forum?
Yes. The 9th Nigeria Energy Forum will be holding on the 9th of July at Maseleni Conference Center, Isaac John, from 9 a.m. with the theme Powering Industrial Growth. So a lot of what we talk about is going to be talked about there.
Sounds like a plan then. Thank you so much for your time this
morning.
Thank you. Engineer Olafemi Olanio is a stakeholder manager of the Nigeria Energy Forum. He's been with us here in the studio, along with Ms. Bironke Olubamishe, who is the National Coordinator, Global Environment Facility Small Grants Program, implemented by the United Nations Development Program. She joined us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, madam, for being here. So we take another break now. When we return, we are still talking about making Nigeria better. But how? Join us after now. Leadership. It's one of my favorite topics. And it so happens that we're talking about leadership as well. And that is talking about the Lagos Leadership Conference. The 20th edition of the conference is in the offing. This time, the focus is on the critical requirement for leaders, which is leading with integrity. Also a favorite topic of mine. Now, the conference will be for both offline and online audiences, expected to attract both local and foreign participants, and it promises to be a major event that will evolve into something significant for the nation and involve both local and international speakers. Leading with integrity, that's the theme of the conference. Let's have conversations this morning about this with three gentlemen joining us here. The Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Shino Joseph. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Femi Amino is the Director of Publicity Mobilization. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
As well as the Director of Corporate Sponsorship, Mr. Ademola Adeniro. Thank you for being here. So let's just say you are the money man. let's start with you, Mr. Joseph.
Thank you very much.
20 years, right? How does it feel?
Oh, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Audience, good morning. I think it's been great. 20 years of LLC. Started 2004 with a humble beginning, just like an idea to bridge the gap, leadership gaps. That is what we all know in Nigeria and across the continent. And it started just as a church program, but over the years, it has evolved. And we've had great minds within Nigeria, outside Nigeria, that have been part of it. And we've had year 2019 was a great year for us, that we focused on Christianorship, how Christian business people should lead. And that's why that is critical for us. We're able to run a boat in Lagos and Port Harcourt. And it was a great. However, the year of COVID came, and the COVID year was also fantastic because we were able to focus on courageous leaders. And because of COVID, we couldn't do it as a physical event. We had to do it in a studio. And we had wonderful people. The governor of Lagos State was there. And since then, we've been having major. Last year was leading with shepherd leadership. And that last year we spoke so much about compassionate leader, leading with empathy and being sacrificial as leaders. So this year, we are summing it up with leading with integrity. You know, integrity is the sum total of a man. If integrity is taken out of a man, the man is nothing. When integrity is taken out of a leader, the leader becomes a beast that is self-centered, greed, and deceit will follow it. So LSC for 20 years, I've seen so many fantastic things. And the 20 year also coincided with our convener's 60th birthday. And he has actually been preaching and leading with integrity. And we believe that today, what is lacking and what is missing in our leadership scope and focus is integrity. And if integrity is there, things will begin to get better. Thank you. Interesting
that you put it that way. But let me ask you, Mr. Aminu. So, the leadership quotient is significantly low and a threat, so to speak. So if you put it in some way, some language, why is integrity an issue? To the best of my understanding, it's easy to just tell someone the truth than deceive the person, because you need like 1,000 lies to cover one. I was trying to describe that to my children, which day was a look, one lie. You tell the lie, someone asks you a follow-up question, you lie, and someone asks you a follow-up question. Man, it'll be a very thick cover for that lie, But isn't it easier to just be honest, just tell the truth?
Very interesting question, and thank you for asking that. I think it's a question that has been and will continue to be asked. The reality is it's actually very easy to speak when it comes to leadership. And looking at this topic, leading with integrity, everyone can say. But at the end of the day, what actually matters or what brings about impact is what you do. So it's actually tough. For instance, everyone can be a preacher, but it's not enough to be a preacher, you need to be a doer. So maybe part of why that deficit, that quotient is low is because it's pervasive. We know about it. We can define it. If you tell someone in the street today, define leadership or leading with integrity, it will answer you very well. But the question is, are you living it? And that's the real question. And taking it from what our CEO said, that's part of the leadership deficit that the convener saw over the years. So you can imagine we've been taking this for the last 20 years or so, but we're still speaking. And coincidentally, this year's topic is being repeated. That's the only topic that is being repeated. We did this some years back as part of the session because it's just very critical. Because today when you look at it, either in the public space, either in the corporate world, or even starting from the home front or people's personal life. For instance, you need to be able to lead yourself to lead others. And how do you lead yourself? You lead with integrity. So which means what you are in the public space is also what you are in the private space. So I think part of what we're trying to do is just to keep pushing this message, just taking it away from the scripture. It says faith cometh by hearing, and hearing, and hearing from the word of God. So if they keep hearing this message of integrity, I know if you look at our nation today, it's there. And most importantly, when you look at the coming generation, that's really the message. So it's not enough to just say it, but you need to live it out.
It's actually heartbreaking, because it's one of the things that I shudder at the thought that we are literally killing our future if we let these things continue the way it is. But let me come to you, Mr. Adeniro. Still on this subject of integrity, we will still talk about the money, but still on this subject of integrity. I say this to anyone who cares to listen. The first person you lie to, before you lie to anyone else, the first person you lie to is yourself. And what could be more damaging? It's like just taking a knife and literally stabbing yourself, because when you're lying to yourself, do you think people are aware of that? When they lose integrity, they first of all lost it within before they demonstrate it out.
Thank you for having me. You are very spot on with what we have said, that you need to lie to yourself first before you can lie to others. Why do people lie? Why don't people live a life of integrity, if we may ask? The reason is basically this. People want to appear to be what they are not. Our General Overseer had a great message on integrity. And he said the foundation of lack of integrity, that's the Adeboye, is pride. It's pride. You are not at a particular level. You know you don't have a capacity to deliver something, but you want people to believe that you can deliver it. You have to lie. You lie because you lack foundational values that you are convinced and you are committed to. You can choose two ways of living, is to live character or to live popularity, charisma. That's the personality ethics. You want to appear to be what you are not. But it has been proved over years of research, over 200 years of research in the US, that the character ethics is what wins at the end. You want to have an advantage that you shouldn't have. That is why you violate integrity. But one thing is this: when you violate integrity, sooner or later you will be found out. Sooner or later the consequences will come. When you're a person of integrity, number one is that you build trust. And when you build trust, you build followership. You can, once you know a leader, for example, is a person of integrity, even when he needs to tell you to take sacrifices, difficult things to do, you will be ready to follow him. But when you are not talking to a person of integrity, you have doubt and you disconnect.
So, Mr. Joseph, what are we to expect from this? It's like we have concluded the conference here right now. Okay. Really, what are we to expect? Because I know, as Mr. Aminu said, this is the first time that a topic is being repeated.
Yeah.
Now, so that means that there is a lot that's yet to be said.
Yeah.
Or that there are circumstances or situations that make people compromise integrity. So how will this conference help to solidify one's integrity?
Okay. The focus on integrity is key for us. And we are looking at it from three perspectives. We are looking at the corporate, we are looking at the public sector, and then we are looking at the church, the spiritual. So we are bringing great minds. From the public sector, we'll be having the chairman of EFCC, Mr. Olukoyede, be speaking on leading with integrity, focus on the public sector. Dr. Darren Awoshika, the former chairperson of the board of Access Bank, will be speaking on the same topic, focusing on the corporate institutions. From the perspective of the corporate institution, how do you actually lead with integrity. And then we have our beloved Daddy and Pastor Ayo Adeloye. Be crowning it up, looking at leading with integrity from the spiritual angle, speaking to leadership of churches and spiritual, religious organization. So that's what we're looking at, so that we don't just be talking about it from one perspective. You know, I've loved, they've spoken so well about integrity. However, like you said, integrity starts from you. You lie to yourself first before you can lie to others. So to ensure that we nip this in the bud this year, that's why we are bringing these great minds that have gotten to the height of their professional career. And they, you recently saw what the chairman of the EFCC did to one of their officers that misbehaved. Normally, it's hard to see such statement coming from leaders in our society. But that person had to be taken off and investigated, and whatever comes out of it, I pray that it will not just be a talking thing, but it will be followed through, and then there will be a feedback to the society as a whole. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Aminu, so first of all, when is this conference taking place?
It's taking place on Friday, that's July 12th. 12th July, that's where it's taking place at the Civic Center,
okay,
at the main auditorium.
From what time? From
9 a.m. up to looking at least 3 p.m., depending on how it goes. We've got...
That's what you were going to say until when Mama calls. Well, you know...
I like that.
So, what's the nature that it's going to take? He's just spoken about Mr. Lukoide coming to make a speech on leading with integrity. What other things are we to expect from the conference?
Okay, you know, being that we're looking at it from 20 years, so we also try to give a picture just for people to see the journey from we started. We're still consistent, because integrity is also about consistency. And then you're having coverage, like he said. We've got the public sector, corporate sector, and the church sector. And I believe it's also going to be a time for people to network and rub minds, because we believe impact happens by those talking, by those connections. And if they take those conversations away from that place and they continue it in their number place, we expect it's going to be a very great event, by the way.
Okay. Is there a need to register?
For sure.
Okay.
There's a need to register, and normally it's actually on our website at LLC conference, and they can register. And as well, also because we've got limited space based on the venue that we're using this year, it's actually important. It's almost like a first come, first served business.
Okay. So, well, money man. So, if corporate organizations want to sponsor, what's in it for them? It's a talk shop.
Yes. Corporate organizations, actually we have corporate organizations that have sponsored us over the years. And it's a platform from which they have derived a lot of benefits. Number one is because there are so many participants, it gives them visibility. And also, because of the values of the leadership conference itself, because the leadership, they also associate with the kind of values that we are going to preach, and it rubs off even on their own reputation. But very importantly too, I think they have come to believe in the message of LLC, the message of good leadership, great leadership. And if that is what they are also pursuing in their own organization, yes, it is the place to be. Over the years, we've had many of them. Over years, many have sponsored up 3, 4, 5 years because they see the benefit in that forum.
I assume that the sponsorship information is also on that website?
Oh, yes. And we have sent letters. There have been letters sent to all the sponsors. There's been interactions with them. We've discussed the scope of what they want to do, the scope of some of them even have products which they are able to even project during that program.
Okay. Yes. Well, Mr. Joseph, I have an interest in how young people can learn from this so that we begin to hand the baton of leadership to them over the years.
Okay, like in year 2020, one of the things that we did was to do what we call unsung leaders. Unsung leaders are individuals that they don't have platform, but they are doing great things. We're able to identify 3 of them then, and actually got awarded and sponsored to do more. We have a copper that was doing great in the north, going from place to place, coming to the west, getting sanitary pads, getting all manners of things, and distributing it over there. We have another lady that was about 3 of them. So what are we doing? We primarily of Redeemed Christian Church of God, but LLC is a foundation that is backed by Bomb in the Barry Foundation. So what you see is that we actually are incorporating the youth into LLC. They are part of it, and they are encouraged to attend and also learn 1 or 2 things. Our beloved brother there, Femi Amino, is also a leader of the youth. He has battalions behind him. So it's not limited to the leaders as we know them, but even the youth are encouraged to attend, to participate, and to learn. So that the baton actually, the baton is not just given, it has to be taken. So we look forward to having them, and they also are invited. And just like he said, the registration is on first come, first serve, and they can follow virtually. Virtually is free to everybody, but where we used to use before, we couldn't use it this year. That has capacity for almost 2,000 people. So we'll have more people following virtually than physically this year. So all the youth will be represented. However, majority of them will follow virtually. So, and they also have so much more to gain, because we look forward to them as a next generational leader. And that leadership does not come by giving. You don't just take it. You have to aspire, and then you have to strive to actually attain that leadership. So it's not piece of mail. Thank you. So
that's one of the things that this conference will do, to position them for that leadership.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Mr. Aminu, I assume that there are other platforms other than the website to get more information about the Lagos Leadership Conference.
Yeah, it's also on all the social media channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. So it's almost on all of that. So that's definitely will be options for them to also view and watch, like we said, in terms of the limited audience. But very critically, like I say, a lot of things falls and rises on leadership. I think critically looking at it in that perspective, part of the bid is to ensure that these youths can pick 1 or 2 things and derive values, knowing fully whether you cannot give what you don't have. And that's also part of why, if you look at the lineup of speakers, there's really no young one. But not as if we don't have young people, but you need someone that can look and speak. Because these days, if you look at our nations today, NSAS, all of those things were just people trying to rebel and say, look, can we really see what we expect? So we're giving them people that will, this is what to do, and this is how to follow.
Okay. Well, Mr. Adeniro, sometimes, from what I understand, different from what I was when I was growing up, young persons look up to the older ones and all of that. But today, the young people want to listen to themselves, seem to want to listen to themselves more. So how do we market to them that, look, there is advantage in listening to people who have gone there before?
The way to engage them and for them to listen to us is when they see the kind of results we have achieved. You see, the youth eventually, number one, they copy, children copy. And as you're growing up, you copy your parents, you copy the people around you. And if you look back at yourself, you'll see maybe your father in you. You see your parents or your closest brothers influencing your life. As leaders, as adults, our life is supposed to be a model that will inspire them. Our life is supposed to be an example that they can follow. Sometimes why they disconnect is actually because of this fundamental lack of integrity. Because you have preached to them honesty, you have preached to them hard work, you have preached to them honesty and all that, but you are behaving differently. The more we disconnect from the fundamental values that will inspire them, the more they will disconnect from us. So the challenge, even for the adults, is for us to live in integrity so that they can follow us. When they see integrity, when they see honesty, when they see values that we preach and we live it, they will even be more encouraged to follow us. If they're not following us, that is the integrity gap that we are getting the feedback on.
But in the event that they don't have such people to follow, and we need them to work in integrity, because not everyone has the opportunity to live in environments. Mr. Aminu is already smiling. Not everyone, people grow up with people who don't have integrity, but we expect them to have that integrity because there is more value in it. How do we achieve that?
No, the point in this in life is that when you have a scripting from your youth and you grow with it, those scripting, they are not cast in stone. Those scripting can be changed. Those scripting can be changed by what you experience, what capacity, new capacity you are exposed to. Everyone can change. There's nobody whose life is cast in stone because you have bad background or background that flawed you, that created some fundamental flaws in your character. It can be changed. But you have to be intentional about it.
Okay.
It's something that you need to aspire to change. And I can tell you there will always be people of integrity. Just as there are people without integrity, there are equally people with integrity that you have
to choose.
It's now a choice, a personal choice. Everything about life is choice.
Okay. Well, Mr. Aminu, just a quick one. The date again, venue and time.
Civic Center, that's the venue, Friday, 12th of July, from 9 a.m. We're looking forward to receiving those that are registered. And then, of course, it will be streamed on all platforms.
Okay. What are we doing on that day?
Speaking on leading with integrity and having Dr. Dere Awosika, ex-chairman for Access Bank, Mr. Olukoyede, the EFCC chairman, and then Pastor Aye Adeloye, who's also from the Redeemed Christian Church of God. And of course, the convener himself will also be sharing from experience.
Okay. That's the Chief Operating Officer here.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Shino Joseph is the Chief Operating Officer of the Lagos Leadership Conference. We've also had Mr. Femi Aminu, Director of Publicity Mobilization, as well as Mr. Ademola Adeniro, Director of Corporate Sponsorship. Thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Thank you.
When we return, it's another issue. It's our lifestyle segment, and we're certainly talking about something you need to understand. Stay with us. Okay. Understanding prostate cancer. Please grab your seat. Sit properly. Okay? And take your pen and paper. You don't need to have pen and paper. On your phone, if you are using an Android, just search for notes. If you are using an iOS device, look for a notepad. So take notes to understand prostate cancer. Maybe you'll be hearing the same things that you've heard before. Maybe you'll be hearing something completely different that you've not heard before this morning on the subject of prostate cancer. Because prostate cancer is the most common major cause in men. Yes. If you are married, you may be interested in this conversation. We understand it's highly treatable, especially if found early. And based on data from the National Cancer Institute surveillance between 2014 and 2020, survival rate is 97.5%. However, whether or not that is true, we'll find out this morning. Dr. Bisola Kadiku is a naturopath, and she's here with us in the studio. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
And how is your prostate health?
Well, let me first of all ask you, how was your birthday celebration?
Oh, it was good.
I have to ask that one.
It was quiet.
Okay. Really? Okay. Anyway, let's not say all of that here.
Okay.
Do you think there's a general, sufficient understanding of prostate cancer?
I would say no. Well, because you see, men generally, I'm sorry to say this, with all due respect to men, they don't take care of themselves as women do. I find more women coming into my clinic asking for how I can prevent this, how I can prevent that, but never men. I don't know how long it took me to convince my husband to go and do his PSA test. It must have taken me like months. And he keeps telling me, oh, I forgot. It doesn't happen like that with women. So you find some men right into their old age, they've never had a prostate test before, PSA test before. And then they go, boom, it's hitting the roof. So it makes me wonder, is there no awareness? Is it that nobody's talking to them and letting them know that as men advance in age, the prostate gland enlarges? And it's on until it gives them discomfort that they go forward for test. But I'll surprise you today. Do you know so many men with enlarged prostate do not have any symptoms? It doesn't mean that it's not going to be a problem, or in fact a cancer is growing in there. So
is it, okay, well, maybe there are those who would say men are very busy. Forgive me, I just have to defend the men, right?
I know.
You know, and it would seem like men are even more interested in the lives of their family than they are in themselves. Same goes for women, because there are some women who would rather, especially so-called career women, would rather give all the attention they need to their children and to their spouses and planning for them and sourcing for them, as opposed to taking care of themselves. Is that a myth?
I would say it's a myth, because to start with, women are very busy too. Women are taking care of children. Men are working for the money. Yeah, that's a general belief. But women have their hands down there, you know, taking care of children, taking care of their husbands, and women work as well. So it's not an excuse for any man who is over 40 to not take out just 1 hour, go to the lab. You can walk into the lab. We live in a country where you don't need to see a doctor to give you a referral note to the lab. So you can walk to the lab and do your PSA, for heaven's sake. Do the test. Do the PSA test. And you don't have to worry about it in another year or two.
Now, what are the risks? I mean, you said something the other time that there are men watching now and listening to you who haven't considered taking any tests over the years. And as far as they're concerned, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So what are the risks being run?
Let me start from the mildest. The mildest would be the change it creates in your life. You can imagine having a large prostate with its symptoms, let's talk about the symptoms. Symptoms are frequent urination, a feeling of retention. Just imagine it as I'm talking about it. Imagine your sleep being disturbed. You waking up like 3 to 4 times a day during the night to go and urinate. How uncomfortable can that be? You wake up feeling groggy, you wake up feeling like you haven't really rested. And then you go to the bathroom. You still feel that you have some retention in there. It's quite uncomfortable. And then that can also start what we call prostatitis. That is inflammation of the prostate. And this can be quite uncomfortable. It can give you a burning feeling when you're urinating. It's not nice to carry an infection everywhere. And then again, we talk about the risk of cancer itself. It's not all enlarged prostates that give way to cancer, So when you have an enlarged prostate, don't panic. Don't say that, oh, I have cancer, no. It doesn't have to be. But it could be. Because then you'll be sent to the lab to do a biopsy for you to test if it's cancer. All that can be quite uncomfortable. You don't have to wait.
And the life that you are trying to make for your family, you can't make it.
Precisely.
And the trajectory of your life is entirely disrupted just by that.
Exactly.
Now, perhaps one of the things to consider here would be the lifestyle of any human being, particularly men in this case, around that. Okay. Is there a lifestyle culture that could make one more vulnerable to it?
Yes. Smoking, alcohol, not eating the right foods. I always say you are what you eat. And as a naturopath, a nutritional expert, I will always talk about what you eat. It's what you eat really that can prevent diseases. You see, people talk about our healthcare system in Nigeria, how poor it is. But I always tell them, if you take care of yourself, you don't have to see the doctor. So how can you take care of yourself as a man to make sure you don't get to where we're talking about, this enlarged prostate? Of course, you would have a significant enlarged prostate as you grow. But for it not to be problematic is what we're trying to prevent. As a man, make sure that you make some of these foods that I'm going to mention a staple in your life, a staple in your diet. A staple is food that you eat at least 3 times in a week. So let's talk about lycopene-rich foods. Let me break it down.
Please,
okay. So it's any food that is red.
Okay.
So let's talk about tomatoes. Tomato juice is nice. You can learn how to make tomato juice 3 times in a week. Take tomato juice. It's nice. It's very delicious. Eat a lot of watermelon. Watermelon is everywhere. Watermelon is red, right? Let's talk about strawberries, if you live in a country where they grow strawberries. Let's talk about guava. When guava is in season, you can eat it. Any food that is red, pomegranates. Well, we don't live in a country where pomegranate grows, but you can buy it in dried form. You can make it as tea. Take a lot of that. Cranberries and anything that is red is good for prostate.
How about red meat?
No, not red meat.
Is it not red?
Not red meat.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, I'm not saying don't eat red meat. Okay. We all know that excessive eating of red meat, causes problems. But I'm not one of the naturopaths that will tell you don't eat red meat, because red meat is safe to eat in this part of the world.
Please explain, because that's not the information we get. I know
yes,
you
the
said
information you're getting, you're reading from an author who is not a Nigerian. Okay, so if I was going to write anything on the internet, I would advise you to eat a lot of red meat, if you can, if you don't have certain diseases.
Why?
Because it has properties like zinc in it, which protects you from so many diseases. Why am I rooting for red meat in this part of the world? Because our animals, I keep saying, they eat the right food. Our cows, our goats eat the right food. They are allowed to graze and eat natural foods. The reason why it is not safe to eat it out there is because they are fed with artificial foods that change their DNA. And since you are what you eat, you are eating what those cows are eating. And so it mutates your own DNA as well. So please go ahead. It is safe for you to eat red meat if you don't have certain diseases, which your natural path will tell you not to eat.
Okay. Well, it's at the risk of saying open grazing is okay, but you're not saying that, so let's just leave it at that right there. Now you talked about red, all things red being good.
All things red being good.
Caution in the place of red meat.
Yes.
So what other things?
Yes, also omega-3 rich foods. Seeds are known to have omega-3. They're known to be rich in omega-3 and omega-6.
What kind of seeds?
Seeds like egusi.
Oh, okay.
So men, please don't run away from egusi.
Especially when it's well made.
Well made, with good palm oil, original palm oil.
Okay.
And we also have seeds here in Nigeria like ogbono seed. Ogbono seed is good. Egusi seed is good. Any sort of seeds have omega-3, omega-6. And then, of course, eat a lot of fish. We also have omega-3 fatty acid in fruits like avocado.
Sorry, before you move off fish, there are those who say that catfish is a little problematic. Is that true?
It depends on what you call catfish. Is it farm-raised?
Okay.
Any farm-raised food, any farm-raised animal is problematic. I just talked about cows that are farm-raised. And yes, indeed, catfish that is farm-raised is problematic because they are not given their natural foods to eat. And the foods that they give them are artificial. It mutates their DNA, their genes. And if you eat it, you are eating poison. So yes, you can eat obokun, especially oily fish, that is less scaly fishes, are very rich in omega-3. You can eat those ones. Mackerel is good. Like I said, obokun is good. We have some fishes that have tiny scales, small scales. They're also very good.
Now, for those who are fish farmers and who want to produce to advantage, what are the things they should avoid giving this fish?
Artificial foods. Imagine giving fishes noodles. I once did a research. When I
can't even imagine.
Yeah, they mix it with their feeds.
Wow.
Yeah, they mix all sorts of things with their feeds, things that God did not create them to eat. So if God did not create them, those kind of foods to eat, so you are making your own creation. So you see, and we all know as naturopaths, we always talk about man-made foods, how poisonous these are to your body systems. So don't go near man-made food.
Okay, you want to talk about the research you did?
Yes, I did a research to find out what kind of feeds they give, what is in the feed that they give these fishes. And yes, I found out that they have noodles in it. They have wheat in it. Wheat. So you can imagine, I mean, there's no wheat down there in their natural habitation. So, I mean, how do you expect them to digest it?
Okay, so moving forward now. So we've talked about certain basics that they can eat, but then this is Africa. We love our swallows. Which one of them is injurious to a man's health, and which one of them is good? Don't forget that we love our nkwobi.
I haven't said any.
I'm just saying.
I haven't.
Wait, you haven't
any.
seen what?
I haven't said any swallow is dangerous.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Or injurious.
Okay.
I am an advocate for traditional foods.
Okay.
Because if you want to know the reason why our ancestors did not have all these diseases that we're having right now, watch what they ate and eat what they ate. Please don't run away from it. Don't let any white man come and tell you that, oh, this is not good for your health. What we've been used to eating, like cassava, like gari, like eba. Don't let anybody come and tell you that it is injurious to your health.
Well, we know it's not injurious, but then one of the things that a good number of people will say out there is that eating swallows is good because it's quicker. You get filled, quicker. But then there are those who say, okay, it could make you vulnerable to diabetes. It has a lot of sugar and all those things. And I'm watching what I want to eat. I don't want to eat too much swallow because I don't want to grow too fat. I don't want to get big bellies and all those things.
The African man, African woman is created by God to be fleshy. That's what makes us beautiful. Okay. I'm a naturopath. I watch my weight, but I make sure that I don't concentrate on counting calories. I count chemicals. And I dare say that I have the right weight. I'm happy with my weight. I'm a beautiful woman.
I know.
I feel beautiful.
Okay, so let's come back to men. Let's come back to men. Men. Enough of women this time around. Let's come back to men. Okay, but then there is also the place of physical activity. All these issues are coming out now because it would seem like generally, as you said earlier, we don't get... Not much attention is given to these things. What many people know about prostate cancer is what they read on the internet or what they're just told, hearsay. And as you mentioned, it's so easy for anyone to just put anything on the internet. So in terms of other activities, you've talked about our nutrition, that we need to watch that very, very carefully. What else needs to go into prevention?
I know you want me to talk about men having sex regularly.
I didn't see it. I'm just asking.
Many men come to my clinic and ask me that do I have this enlarged prostate because I'm not having sex regularly? It's all a myth. I don't know where they got that from. It has nothing to do. I haven't read anything in science that says that if you have sex regularly, you won't have enlarged prostate. No, there's no connection.
So it's a natural thing. The prostate will go.
It would grow, but it doesn't have to give you problems. And then again, I need to clear something. You are talking about prostate cancer all the time. Enlarged prostate does not equal prostate cancer. Enlarged prostate could be benign. That's what we call in medicine PBH, benign prostatic hyperplasia. It just means that the cells are growing more than normal. They are growing to a point where that gland is now enlarged, but it's benign. That is non-cancerous. That can give you discomfort, but it would not kill you. and it does not lead to cancer. So we have that with issues on prostate health. We also have prostatitis, which I mentioned earlier. Prostatitis is when it is infected. When there is an infection there, you need to fix it because it gives you discomfort. Now, then we have the big C, the monstrous C. So there are three issues that can happen with your prostate health. So, but in all that, you need to take care of your prostate. You need to prevent any of these three from happening.
Now, how about genetic factors? Is there how significant is family history in the risk of developing prostate cancer?
Yes, genetic factor comes to play when we're talking about cancer. But genetic factor has nothing to do with enlarged prostate, PBH, or prostatitis. Anybody can have that. And in most cases, yes, genetic factors affect, your rate, the rate of the chance of you getting prostate cancer.
Now, you've talked about, in terms of lifestyle, you've talked about what we eat. How about physical activity? Is that significant? We will grow. I mean, you just said it already. Naturally, it will grow.
Yes.
But in what way does physical activity help?
Yes, the only physical activity that prevents enlarged prostates giving you problems is called the Kegel exercises.
Kegel exercise, okay.
It is a pelvic floor exercise, which men should go and learn how to do. It's easy. It's something that you can do at home. It takes only 3 minutes in the day to do it. And if you do it as frequently as like 5 times a week, then you're fine.
So Kegel, just to be clear, is K-E?
K-E-G-E-L.
K-E-G-E-L. So please go ahead and Google it, K-E-G-E-L, for men. What many are wondering what women have got to do, because what men have got to do, because they always knew that to be something that women did, right?
Kegel, no.
Oh, okay.
Men also, because you see, your prostate is sitting just right above your pelvic floor.
Okay.
So you need to firm up the muscles there for you to, reduce the size of the prostate.
Are there other risk factors? You've talked about age, which is a natural phenomenon. But then is this something that's peculiar to ethnicity or livelihood or any form of work anyone does?
There's so many myths.
Oh, God.
So many myths. And I don't want to talk about myths right now. But yes, it is said sometimes that it's peculiar amongst black men, I guess it's because black men don't really exercise. You find white men, they run, they do the Kegel exercises. They're open to information on how to prevent enlarged prostates.
Okay. All right. Do other medical conditions complicate a benign prostate?
I would say no.
Okay.
Although some other naturopaths may argue that, maybe side effects of some other drugs that you're taking. But no. It's an age thing. It's something that comes naturally.
Now, for those who may be at risk now, or for those who may have confirmed that they do have it, what can you recommend for them?
Yes.
Within the
first
next
thing
few
that I'm
seconds?
going to say is that don't panic. If you have enlarged prostate, don't panic. Don't go and do any surgery immediately, because you may be advised by your doctors to go and do a surgery. You see, that abnormal growth of those cells, they may never give you problems till you die. It's slow in growing. It may never outgrow the size that it is right now. It may never harm you in any way. So don't rush to go and castrate yourself. You can see a naturopath, see a doctor of natural medicine who can help you to give you some supplements, which I'm not going to mention here. There's some supplements, very good, that in 1 month, you just find your PSA level coming down, like a miracle. So they can also advise you on lifestyle change.
Okay. Okay, let me just hang it there, because before I give some people panic attacks. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I think that's the basic understanding. There's those who are wondering, hey, you guys weren't talking about prostate cancer, you're just talking about prostate. Yes. Otherwise, would you even listen in the first place? Thank you so much for being here this morning. Dr. Bisola Kadiku is a naturopath.
Yes, I am.
Thank you again. Thank you. I would have asked you what you do, but I don't even know. Go and Google it. So, just before we take our home stretch, here is the wrap.
The Wrap is back, and there's so much to share with you from the big stories of Afrobeat artists headlining the big stages at the Glastonbury Festival, to the disappointment of Nigerian stars losing the BET prize to Tyler again, and many more other stories. My name is Abide Midairo, and I'll try to wrap it all up for you. Starting with the second time defeat of Nigerian Afrobeat heavyweights on the big stage this year, as yet again South African singer Tyler beats some of our current raves to another music prize after picking the prestigious Best International Act trophy at the BET Awards. The Water singer triumphed over key Nigerian artists including Iro Star and Ashake. This follows a notable win at the 2024 Grammy Awards, where she took home the Best African Music Performance Awards for her mega hit single, Water, dusting Nigerian superstars including Burna Boy, Davido, and others.
I did not prepare anything, but I just want to say thank you so much to my Tigers, my family, my team. Thank you to BT for always pushing the culture.
As a consolation prize for Afrobeats, Thames was rewarded with a win in the Best Gospel Inspirational Song Award with her hit single, Me and You. Of course, this has sparked a debate about whether she's eligible for the category or not, seeing how she nicked it over known gospel singers like Kirk Franklin, Shelley Caesar, and Maverick City. Regardless, the victory now marks her 4th BET prize. It was, however, yet another impressive outing for Afrobeats on another global stage, and this time it's on the platform of the Glastonbury Festival. This year, Afrobeats' legacy is evident, with strong Nigerian presence gracing the stages. Iro Star captivates the audience with her hit track, including The Infectious Ability. Meanwhile, Femi and Made Kuti, the son and grandson of Fela Kuti, honor their father's legacy with a riveting set blending Afrobeats, jazz, and high life on the Pyramid stage. The returning Titan Burna Boy dazzled the crowd with a spectacular lineup on the Pyramid stage, beginning with a heartfelt a cappella version of his single, It's Plenty, and later transitioned seamlessly into the smash hit, Yeah, and concluded with the fan favorite, Last Last. Thames also delivers a soulful performance on a different stage at the festival, featuring a rendition of Love Me Jeje off her debut album, Born in the Wild.
Love me Jeje, love me Jeje. My sugar, my honey, but turn to love.
Well, speaking about Burna Boy, the self-professed African giant and Grammy Awards winner once again set a new benchmark in the music industry as his latest single, Higher, achieved the highest opening day streams for a solo song on Nigerian Spotify, with over 530,000 streams in its first 24 hours. This feat surpasses the previous record held by Wizkid's Diamond, which garnered about 518,000 streams. Maven singer Rema has his own records to show off as well as he joins Wizkid as the second Nigerian to have album on the prestigious Billboard 200 global chart for over 100 weeks. His 2022 album Raven Roses, which houses the monster hit single Calm Down, becomes the second longest charting Nigerian album in the chart's history. Rema's feat with Raven Roses places him second behind Wizkid's Made in Lagos, which had spent 133 weeks on the charts.
Finally, I find way to talk to the girl, but she ain't no one follow.
Big ups to Nigerian artists doing their thing in a spectacular manner. Now off to Nollywood, where Odunlade Adekola's new title, Lakatabu, is the highest grossing Nigerian movie at the theaters for the week from June 28th to the 4th of July. The movie has raked in a cumulative figure of over 105 million naira in its second week. This is big news for Nollywood, seeing how Hollywood titles have constantly been dominating the figures since Funke Akindele's A Tribe Called Judah, which ran over 1 billion naira in 11 weeks. And that's where we shall be leaving it today. For more, remember to keep tab on our social media handles showing on your screen. My name is Abide Midairo, and it's back to Sunrise now.
So our next item is the home stretch, and as you can see, I have a guest here. Adefela Adegbe is his name. He's a comedian, social media, digital marketing enthusiast. He's also a cake plug, among many other things. And guess what? He's also an MC. Thank you for joining us here this morning, and it's good to have you.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You've been in comedy for how long now?
Officially, I'll say 8 years.
So unofficially,
yes, sir.
Oh, which one?
So, this is how it works. I started counting my years on stage when I met legendary Benga Denka the first.
Okay.
Because that was when I actually have the opportunity to be mentored and trained by a true veteran and someone who actually has the depth of the craft. But before 2016, I've always been doing, MCs for friends back then in the school, friends' birthday, fellowship events, and all of that. So, and it's always been like that until 2016.
Interesting. So, one thing that I want to ask you is, what did your height do to you?
Okay. Now, I get this every time.
What is the offense of your height?
I don't understand. People tend to actually. This height has been a blessing to me. I've come to see it more as a blessing because.
Oh yes, I mean you can easily sneak into anywhere and sneak out. Thank God you are never going to join an armed robbery gang because it's easy to just sneak in and sneak out.
How do I even join an armed robbery gang? Imagine I want to rob you and I say your life or your money. I just like, what is talking? You didn't say who is talking. You say what is talking because you just be there looking for who is talking. I've literally jumped through a mole window. In Ikeja.
You jumped
I jumped in through the window because it was, just too many people want to enter at the same time. And I just saw this window. Everybody's just at the door. And the window is wide open. I just used the tires and helped myself in, So that's why I said it's been a blessing. And, every comedian has these go-to jokes on stage. Okay. We call it koboko, like when you are being flogged on stage and everyone just have this joke they run to. Mine most times is about my height and that's always been working for me.
Which is your favorite?
That I cannot keep a relationship.
How did I get that immediately? How did I understand it immediately?
Because you have a good sense of humor. Now, just let me show you something real quick. See. But I want to be relaxed like you. Just okay.
I think my director would want to catch that, so you have to do it again. So you are seated
just
here now.
Like this, and I just want to be relaxed.
You want to be relaxed like me. You want to sit back.
Just look at me, and my leg is swinging. It's.
I don't envy you. Okay, so how did comedy start for you?
Okay, I would say it's a trait I picked from my mom. My mom had always been, up until now, you know, these Yoruba traditional wedding MCs, Alagadura and Alagajoko and all of that. Plus, she is a retired teacher, and you know, people generally think teachers, they can talk and all of that. Likewise, my dad is also a retired teacher, so I've always seen her do her thing during engagements and all of that. And over the years, when I got to university, I'd see some of my senior colleagues, Onitong and No Trespass. They were the trending comedians back then in school. I finished from Lautech, by the way.
Okay.
And I'd always walk past their shows and bills and be like, guy, and you are funny too. But my own funny is in my mind. so all those times, it had just always been me doing MC for church programs, friends, and all of that. But I'll just always focus on maybe someday you have the courage to pick this up. But then I didn't have that courage until after school, when I was 7. What actually prompted that courage is a brother of mine in fellowship, when I was in 500, who just called me one day, a Tuesday evening, like, fella, what's your plan for after school? And that was the moment it dawned on me that I didn't have a plan after school.
Wow.
Other than my certificate. I studied mechanical engineering anyway. But please don't let me touch your car.
So you are now...
Don't let me touch your car.
Okay, you can. If touching is just to admire it, you can touch it.
Because if I should touch your car, your brake pad can be lost.
Become funny.
It can be missing.
Your joke can become, the car can become funny.
Just like, God bless you. You get it. So after that moment, with the help of God, I just felt, okay, maybe this is something I can pursue later. And by the time I started my service in 2015, God bless my uncle, my dear uncle, Mr. Olaoluwa Emmanuel. He gave me a room in Port Harcourt. And it was right there in that room. Everything I do today started. My being a comedian, being an MC, digital marketing, everything started in that room. And I'd always lock myself up, ingesting information, content, practicing things on my own. And pretty much, I left 2016, I came to Ibadan. I met Aya Desanya on Instagram. God bless her for me. I asked her, I'm an upcoming comedian. I would like her to link me up with one of our comedian friends. And she's like, oh, well, I don't have too much friends, but I have Bengadeka. I'm like, What do you mean by you don't have too many friends? Bengadeka is a legend.
It's too many.
Bengadeka is crowd. So, I mean, even if not in achievement, but in size, the man is a crowd, even in size. So, sorry, Daddy. He's probably watching. So, then she just linked me up with Bengadeka. God bless Bengadeka for me. God bless you, Daddy. I'm so grateful. I sent him a friend request on BBM. It was BBM those years. And in 5 minutes, he accepted. I've never seen that level of humility in such level of achievement, you know, to be able to come down from a high horse and relate to it. Well, common people in quotes. So, and the rest they say is history. He offered me a job in 2016. That's how I moved to Lagos from Ibadan.
Okay. All right. Maybe me too, I should ask for a job now. Okay. I'm trying to draw a lesson for someone who is watching and who needs to get the same kind of courage that you have. There are many people who are stuck in careers that they don't want to be in right now. There's a bank clerk right now. I have a friend, Bukumi Preacher. He was a bank person.
Yeah, I know.
Before he decided that, you know what, I'm done. I'm just going to go into... So what does it take to drop your fears and embrace your destiny?
It takes a lot. I'll say, excuse me, because of the... Don't forget, backtrack to when my brother had that conversation with me, like, what's your plan for after school? Right there and there, after that conversation, I made up my mind that I'm going to, whilst I work on my craft, before I become that big in my own space, I'll pick up a 9-to-5 job that can allow me do my thing on the weekend. So it's always been my own compass. And I met a couple of other upcoming comedians like me at Comedy Club, Omababa's Comedy Club. God bless Omababa for me too. His comedy club actually helped in grooming me too. So sometimes when I meet my other colleagues who are also upcoming like me, I advise them that, you see, you don't have to just rely on your skills or your craft alone. Pick up something that can allow you to do your craft. I mean, there are hybrid jobs, there are remote jobs. Thank God for so many platforms right now. So like that, so every time I launch out to apply for a job, I do my due diligence, asking them, please, my weekend is free. My weekend is mine. You can't call me on weekends.
No emergency.
No emergency. I don't care whether the office is on fire. Please don't call me on weekends, because it's my day, it's my time. So it has always been a guide for me. So even if events are not coming so well, I had my 9-to-5 to keep my spirit, soul, and body, and be a good man to my family.
It's not like you have a choice.
I mean,
they didn't apply for the job. You called them in. Okay. Now, what would you say is a major challenge for you when you got into the industry? What kind of pushback have you had? What kind of feedback have you received, and how have you navigated?
Okay, the major challenge would have been, well, I didn't have so much. And I'm grateful to God for that, because of my mentor, Gbenga Adeyinka the First. This is where people need to understand the place of mentorship. You don't necessarily have to launch if you are not ready. That is what a mentor does for you. I'll give you an instance. So, don't forget I said 2016 I moved to Lagos because Gbenga Adeyinka offered me a job. So, one of those times we went to Ibadan. We were preparing for Love Matters Abeokuta, October 1st. So, one of those nights, I went to Peteru. He was a comedian in Ibadan, God rest his soul. I went to his comedy club with Omababa. So all those times, I was just still following Gbenga Adeyinka. I see how he does his things. I absorb information. I am more of, I don't read much, but I absorb from people so much to compliment for that. So one of those at the comedy club, Peter just said, "Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Prince Fela." I took the mic. In my mind, I was killing it. In my mind, a superstar is born that night. And after the sorry, I won't call it performance. After talking to the microphone, I went to Omababa. I'm like, Egbon, how was my performance? And God bless Omababa for being so honest. He's like, was I a performance? I'm like, I had no words. It's like, I didn't even know when you started. I didn't know when you finished. And when we go back to Lagos, he told Gbenga Adeyinka about it. And Gbenga Adeyinka was like, see, I don't want you near a microphone in the next 3 months. Wow. This generation needs to understand the place of mentorship. And mentorship doesn't mean looking for somebody to carry your bills. No. When it comes to mentorship, it has to be both ways. What do you have to offer? With the help of God, don't forget I said, he also said, during my recitation, said I'm a digital marketer. So backtrack again, when I met Gbenga Adeyinka, I noticed he didn't have a fan page. In my own little way, I felt maybe if I can contribute to him in this way. I'd already started my social media management and all of that. So I preached to him that it's not like I want to be a parasite solely on you. I can also help in this area. I'm a blogger. I do digital marketing. I do social media management. I shall pitched what I can offer him as well, without caring whether there's someone else doing that for him already. And he was gracious enough to allow me into his team. So I can say it's a symbiotic. I think symbiotic is the word. It's been a while I did biology kind of relationship. So when looking for that mentor, don't just go all about looking for, hey boss, how far? I beg, I did broke, your boy is broke, send me something. No. it doesn't work. God bless you, sir. Audience to every time. So it works as it just so. During the mentorship process, it groomed me, and by October 1st, in less than 3 months, I was ready to perform at Love Matters Gbenga Adeyinka the 1st, October 1st. And that was my introduction to the comedy industry. One of the biggest platform in Nigerian Southwest.
Okay. Now, you said something about mentorship, and you said that people must recognize the place of mentorship.
Yes, sir.
How easy is that to sell? How easily can you sell that to a 20-year-old idealist who believes that he's got everything that he needs?
Oh, well, guess what? You don't have to sell it to them. Just leave them. Let them go and do it.
You're not a nice man.
No, I mean, as a Yoruba man, is it okay to say, don't worry, I'll translate. Yoruba will say, one sheep and a rofa bouquet, which means you don't persuade a man with hunchback to stand up. So, if you feel you don't need mentor, don't worry, just go.
It's a matter of time.
Go and do it. You will see it.
So, what next do we expect from Prince Fela?
Okay, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this kind of question.
By that I mean, what are you aspiring?
I get you. I was just going to say, it's this kind of question you ask celebrities. Me, I'm not a celebrity.
Okay,
but then,
what are you?
But then, like I said, up to now, I'm still undergoing mentorship because I believe mentorship is a lifetime activity. You never know it all.
Okay.
Even my mentor, Gbenga Adeyinka, the first, sometimes when we are having this conversation, you go like, he still references Alibaba, despite the fact that they are colleagues and friends. He told me it takes greatness to identify greatness. So it doesn't even matter how long it takes. Mentorship is always good, and I'll always be improving on my craft, taking as many gigs, MC gigs as I can, taking as many stages as I can, God help me.
And continuing to design cakes. Anyway.
God bless you, sir. That one.
Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me. Adefela Adegbe. Yes, the fella that doesn't smoke or drink. Gbenga Adeyinka and Baba always say, I'm just wasting my name. How will you be fella? You're not smoking, you're not drinking.
I agree with them. You are wasting. And by the way, his own fella is spelled P-H-E-L-Y. So it's
L-A-R. P-H-E-L-A-R.
P-H-E-L-A-R, you see?
Actually, that's just for stage purpose.
Please don't preach listening to us. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for having me. God bless you.
And that's been Sunrise today. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your Saturday morning. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Ayo Makinde. Let me continue my conversation with Adefela. So,
thank you, sir.
What else are we? What are we eating this afternoon?
I'm just thinking, is there maybe